dialog cancel, which is just going to say cancel, and alert dialog action, like that, which is going to say continue. And on click, we're gonna call on confirm, like that. So now we created a reusable alert model with a continue or cancel button. Great. So now let's go inside of chapter actions and let's wrap this button, which renders our trash, with our new confirm model, like this. So I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this. And what I'm missing is an onConfirm, which for now is just going to be an empty arrow function, like this. So now, if you click on this, you should get a pop-up. So just refresh your page if you haven't. And let me just wait for this to load. There we go. So now when I click here, there we go. We have an "Are you sure?" right here, and I can cancel it. I can also continue, right? But nothing is happening. So now let's create an action to actually delete a model. So let's go ahead in the chapter actions here and let's write const on delete, like this. And let's go ahead and let's add const is loading, set is loading to be use state from React and give it the default value of false. So I'm gonna move that to the top. Let's go ahead and let's mark this as an asynchronous function. And let's open a try and catch block. In the catch block, I'm gonna go toast.error, something went wrong and I forgot to import toast. So toast from React hot toast. Make sure you have that. I'm gonna move it to the top. All right, and in the finally block, we're gonna say set is loading to be false, like that. Which means in the try block, we're gonna write set is loading to be true, like that. And then let's just do await Axios from Axios. So make sure you import Axios. I'm gonna move it to the top. All right. And I'm just gonna write Axios.delete, open backticks, /API, /courses, /course ID, /chapters, /chapter ID, like this. Great. Let's write toast.success to be chapter deleted, like that. And now let's go ahead and let's add our router. So const router is going to be use router from next /navigation. So make sure you imported that as well. All right. And now let's just write router.refresh and then router.push /teacher /courses /course ID, like this. Great. And now let's use this on delete to be the on confirm of this one, like that. And let's give this a disabled prop of is loading, like that. And let's modify this disabled to be disabled or is loading, right? So we haven't yet created the publish action, what we will in the future. So now if I try and click this, I'm going to get something went wrong because we don't have an API route to delete a chapter. So let's go ahead and do that. So we already have a file for that, and that's where we update our chapter. So we're gonna extend that file to delete it as well. So courses, course ID, chapters, chapter ID, route.ts. So let's go above the patch function and let's write export asynchronous function delete, which has a request of type of request, and it has params. So you can just copy the params from the patch function. It's exactly the same, right? There we go. Let's go ahead and open this. Let's open a try and catch block. Let's console log chapter ID delete with an error, so we ourselves know what's going on, and let's return new next response internal error, like this, with a status of 500. Perfect. Let's go ahead and let's extract the user ID from the out, which we already have imported because of the patch function which we are using here. And now let's go ahead and let's write if there is no user ID, let's return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401. Perfect. Now let's attempt to fetch this course using this user ID. So const own course is going to be await db.course.findUnique where ID is params.course ID and user ID is user ID. Great. I'm just going to copy and paste this function, and I'm going to check if there is no on course. That means we are unauthorized. Perfect. So now let's go ahead and let's find this chapter. So const chapter is going to be await db.chapter.findUnique, where ID is params.chapter ID and course ID is params.course ID, like this. And first thing I'm going to do is, if there is no chapter found, we can return new next response not found with a status of 404, like this. Great. Now let's check if the chapter we are trying to delete has a video URL. If it has, we're going to have to delete mux data. So if chapter.video URL, like this, let's write const existing mux data to be await db.muxdata.find first, where chapter ID is params.chapter ID, like that. And if we have existing mux data, in that case, await video.assets.delete existing mux data.asset ID, like that, and then await db.muxdata.delete, where ID is existing muxdata.id, like that. So we have our cleanup function for the assets, and after that is done, let's go ahead and let's just write const deleted chapter to be await db.chapter.delete, like that, where ID is params.chapter ID, like that. All right. So we have to check for something else. So I told you that a course cannot be published if we don't have at least one active chapter, right? So at least one chapter needs to be published. So what I'm going to check, if after we delete this chapter, is there still a chapter in this course that is published? If there isn't, if this one which we deleted was published, that means that we're going to have to unpublish the entire course. So let's write const published chapters in course to be await db.chapter.findMany, where course ID is params.course ID, and we're also going to write is published to be true, like this. And then we're going to go ahead and write if there is no published chapters dot length. So if the array is empty, if we haven't found any, in that case, let's update the course. So await db.course.update, where ID is params.course ID and data is going to be is published false, like that. Great. So we have that working, and let's just now return new next return next response.json deleted chapter, like that. Great. Let's go ahead and let's try this now. So I'm gonna click delete, I'm gonna click continue, and you can see the buttons are disabled now. And let's see if something's gonna happen. So it says chapter deleted, and I should get redirected. There we go. And you can see I only have one now. So let's attempt to delete this one as well. So I'm gonna click delete, I'm gonna click continue. Let's wait and see if it happens. Chapter deleted, and there we go. Now it says no chapters. Perfect. So now we have to create an API route for publishing the course, the chapter. Let's go back inside of our chapter actions, so we can close everything now, and let's find chapter actions. So we have that inside of teacher, courses, course ID, chapters, chapter ID underscore components right here. And we have this empty on click for the publish button. So let's go ahead and let's create that. So const on click is going to be an asynchronous arrow function, like this. Let's go ahead and open a try and catch block. And let's write toast error, something went wrong, like that. In the finally block, set is loading to be false. In the try block, set is loading is going to be true, like that. And now let's go ahead and write if is published. We are going to do await axios.patch open backticks /API /courses /course ID /chapters /chapter ID, like this, /unpublish, right? So this is going to be for unpublishing, and then write toast.success chapter unpublished, like that. Perfect. Else you can copy and paste this like that, but we're going to change it to write to /publish, and this is going to say chapter published, like that. And let's copy this on click now, and let's give it back here on this on click. Great. So now let's go ahead and create a new chapter, test publish, like this. Let's create it. Let's go inside of it, and let's go ahead and fill what we need. So this is a test information here. I'm gonna go ahead and upload a video. So remember, we cannot publish a chapter if we don't have the description, the chapter title, and the chapter video. So you can see it says complete all fields, 2 out of 3. So let's wait for a second for this to refresh. There we go. As you can see, my publish button is now available. And if I click, I'm going to get something went wrong because we have not created an API route for that. So let's go ahead and let's do that now. So I'm going to go back inside of my app API folder, courses, course ID, chapters, chapter ID, and I'm going to create a new folder called publish, like that. And inside, I'm going to create route.ts file. So let's go ahead and let's write export asynchronous function patch, which has a request of type of request, and it has params, which are an object, and which hold a course ID, which is a string, and a chapter ID, which is a string as well. Let's open a try and catch block here. So we have an error. Let's do console log chapter publish, like that. And let's do an error, and let's return new next response from next/server internal error, like that, with a status 500. There we go. Let's go ahead and let's get the user ID from the out function using clerk next.js. So just make sure you have this imports, of course. And now let's write if there is no user ID, let's return new next response unauthorized with a status of 401, like this. Great. So now let's go ahead and let's attempt to fetch our course. So const own course is await db from @libdb. So make sure you have this import as well. I'm just going to separate it. So await db.course.findUnique, where ID is params.courseID and user ID is matching. And I'm just going to copy and paste this if clause here. And if there is no own course, we're going to return unauthorized, like that. Perfect. So now let's attempt to find this chapter, which we are trying to publish. So const chapter is going to be await db.chapter.findUnique, where ID is params.chapterID and course ID is params.courseID, like that. Now let's find the mux data. So const mux data, await db.muxdata.findUnique again, where chapter ID is params.chapterID. All right, and now let's write if there is no chapter, or if there is no mux data, or if there is no chapter.title, or if there is no chapter.description, or if there is no chapter.video URL. In any of those cases, we're going to return new next response missing required fields with a status of 400. So all of these are required in order for us to publish the chapter. Perfect. And now let's go ahead and let's write const published chapter to be await db.chapter.update, where ID is params chapter ID, course ID is params.course ID, like that, and data is very simply is published true, like this, and return next response.json published chapter, like that. Perfect. So let's go ahead and try this now. So I'm just gonna refresh this. I'm gonna click publish. It seems to be loading. And it says chapter published. And let's see if this caused a refresh. It seemed like it didn't cause a refresh, but I think if I manually refresh, there we go. You can see that the banner is gone. So two things we have to do. We have to go back inside of our chapter actions, and in here, it looks like we forgot, where is it? It's right here, right? In the is published. So let's just at the end add router.refresh, like this. So we forgot to do that. So once we publish or unpublish, we need to refetch the server component so that it's updated. But if I try to unpublish now, we're going to get an error because unpublish does not exist. So let's go ahead and create that route now. So we can actually reuse most of the stuff from the publish route. So I'm gonna focus on that one here. And I'm gonna go ahead and copy this publish folder, paste it inside of the chapter ID route, and I'm gonna call it unpublish, like this. And I'm gonna go inside, and it's pretty much gonna be the same, but we're not gonna need mux data, so we can remove that, and we're not gonna need this check at all, right? Instead, what we're gonna do is we're just gonna check for if there is no own course, and we don't even need to check for this chapter like this, so we can remove that. And instead of published chapter, it's just going to be unpublished chapter, because we're gonna change this data is published to false, like that. And of course, that's the chapter we're gonna remove. But it's not just that. We're also gonna have to check if the chapter we just unpublished was the only published chapter in this entire course, which means that if we unpublish this chapter, we also need to unpublish the entire course. So let's also rename this error chapter unpublish, and now let's write const published chapters in course. So very similar to the thing we did in the delete function, right? So wait db.chapter.findMany, where course ID is params.course ID and is published is true, like that. And let's go ahead and so just that, all right? And if there is no published chapters in length, so like this, so if there's none of them, then await db.course.update, where ID is params.course ID and data is published false, like this. There we go. So we have our unpublished function now. Let's try it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and click unpublish here, and let's see if that's gonna work. There we go. It says this chapter is unpublished. It will not be visible in the course. So you can see how this now says it's a draft. But if I go ahead and publish this chapter now, and if I go back, there we go. Now it says published, which is exactly what we want. So we completed the entire chapter creation process. What we have to do now is we have to create equivalent actions, but for publishing a course. And one more thing I want to show you, just if you haven't noticed. So we have a badge here which says published, right? But if I go ahead and select this free access and save this file, and then if I go back, you're gonna see that now I also have a free badge right here. So just in case you haven't noticed that. Great. So now we're finally ready to create our actions to publish this course. And then we're gonna create a table which is gonna display all of our courses together. Great, great job. So what we have to create now is the actions to publish our course. So we just finished the actions to publishing our chapter, and now let's do the same thing, but this time to publish the course itself. So let's go back inside of page.tsx, which is rendering the entire course. So I'm just gonna expand my screen here like that. And we're gonna go ahead inside of the app folder, inside of dashboard, routes, teacher, courses, course ID, page.tsx. So right here. And inside, where we have the completion text, we're going to go ahead and add a new constant like we did in the chapter page to be const is complete, which is just going to say required fields dot every and a boolean inside. So that way we're going to know that all of these fields are true. All right, and now let's go ahead and let's wrap this entire thing inside of a fragment so we can add a nice little banner. So same thing we did with the chapter field, right? Sorry, with the chapter ID page. And now inside, let's go ahead and let's add a conditional. So if course is not published, so I'm using an exclamation point right here, right? And let's go ahead and let's render a banner from add components / banner. So just make sure that you have the banner imported, and I'm just going to move it to the top with the other imports. All right, we have the banner, and now let's give it a label of, let's give it a label of this course is unpublished, like that. It will not be visible to the students, like that. So just make sure you have that, and let's take a look at how that looks like. There we go. So it says this course is unpublished. It will not be visible to the students. Perfect. So let's go ahead now and let's create our actions component, right? So we're going to do that outside of this div right here. So I'm going to go ahead and write a comment add actions here. So find this span which says complete all fields, find the closing div, and then below that is where we're going to put our actions. So we can actually copy the actions from the chapter's chapter ID underscore components. So copy the chapter actions like that and paste it in the underscore components of the individual course ID. And inside, I'm just going to rename them to just actions like that. Let's go ahead and let's rename the instances of props and interfaces inside to just be actions like that. And let's go ahead inside of page right here and let's just render it so it's going to be actions like this. And let's import it from / components actions. So make sure you have this import like that. And let's pass in the disabled prop, which is complete. I mean, exclamation point is complete, right? We're going to have a course ID, which is params.course ID. And we're going to have is published, which is going to be course.isPublished like that. And now, as you can probably see, is that we are missing a prop saying chapter ID is missing, right? But we're not going to have that actually inside of our actions. So since we copied this from the chapter actions, that's why we have the chapter ID, but we actually don't need it. So make sure you're inside of course ID components newly copied underscore components actions file and remove the chapter ID. We're not going to work with it. So you can go ahead and also change this API routes as well. So let me just expand this like this. So we're not going to go to /chapters. We're immediately going to go to /unpublish or /publish. So this is going to be the entire route. /API /courses course ID unpublish and courses course ID publish. And let's just change this messages to course unpublished or course published like that. Great. And now we also have to change this inside of the onDelete. So it's just going to be a delete method like this. So just a course ID, and we're going to say course deleted like that. And we're going to push not to the individual course ID, but to just /courses like this. Great. So I think that's pretty much enough for us to already see these actions. There we go. And as you can see, the publish button is disabled because I didn't add all the fields, but let's try the delete one. There we go. We have a model, and if I click continue, I should get an error because we don't have this page for deleting the course. So now let's go ahead and let's create this API route. So we already have a starting point, which is our route for updating the course. So let's go ahead and find that route. So inside of the API courses course ID, and we have route.ts right here. So we have a patch route, and now we're going to create an equivalent delete route. But before we do that, I actually want to import mux, because we're going to have to check if any of our chapters have existing mux data. So if we delete an entire course, we also have to delete the assets from the mux so we don't fill it up for no reason, right? So import mux from mux/mux-node like that, and let's add a const video like this to be new mux. So new mux like this, process.environment.mux_token_id, and below that we're gonna have mux_token_secret. So whenever you're writing environment variables, please just double check them in your .environment file that they're matching like this. So mux token ID and mux token secret. You can copy and paste directly because sometimes typos can slip in. Great, now let's go ahead and let's write export asynchronous function delete, which has a request, and it also has the params like this. So you can just copy the params from the patch function. And let's open a try and catch block inside. So let's write console log course ID delete and an error like that. And let's return new next response internal error like this with a status of 500. Great. And now let's go ahead and let's extract the user ID from out, which we already have imported. If there is no user ID, we return new next response unauthorized like that with a status of 401. Whoops. Let's see. So I'm right here. Okay. And now what we have to do is we have to fetch the course. So const course is await db.course.findUnique, where ID is params.courseID and user ID is user ID. My apologies. All right, and we're gonna include chapters, and inside of them we're gonna include mux data like this. All right, and now let's first check if we haven't managed to load this course at all. So if there is no course to be deleted, let's return new next response not found like this with a status of 404. All right, and now let's go ahead and let's write for const chapter of course.chapters if chapter.muxdata?assetID await video.assets.delete chapter.muxdata.assetID like this. Great, so we have this cleanup function, and now we can safely delete the course, and all the mux data is gonna get deleted because we put onDelete cascade inside of the relation in Prisma, but we have to manually delete the assets from mux. So const deleted course is await db.course.delete like that, where ID is params.courseID like that. Whoops. And what we have to do now is we have to return new next response.json deleted course. It's not new, so it's just next response.json like this. All right, so I think that should do it. So let's just go ahead and try. So I'm gonna delete this, continue, it's loading, and let's see if it's gonna redirect us back to /courses. It says course deleted, and there we go, we're redirected back. So let's go ahead and try the new one now. So advanced web development like this. And great, we have these actions right here, perfect. So what we have to do now is we have to enable our publish button. So I'm just quickly gonna do that. So I'm gonna add the description, I'm gonna add the price like this, I'm gonna select a category. So you can see that every time we add a new field, the completed fields increases, right? Very cool. Let's go ahead and let's add an image like this. And last thing that we have to do is we have to add a chapter which is going to be published. So I'm gonna go and add a chapter. I'm gonna write introduction like this. And as you can see, still it's 5 out of 6. But if we go inside of the chapter and if we add the proper description to it, and if we add an actual mux asset to it, so I'm gonna upload this file, and then we will be able to publish this chapter. And then we're gonna have our publish button enabled inside the course actions. So let's just wait for that. All right, let's click publish for this chapter. There we go. This chapter is published, and now I can finally publish this. But if I click publish, we're gonna get an error because we don't have a route to publish the courses. So now let's go ahead and let's create that one. Let's go back inside of the API folder. So we're right here, all right, in the course ID. And inside of the course ID, create a new folder called publish, like this. So the same way we did for the individual chapter. And let's add route.ts inside. Let's go ahead and let's start writing our patch function. So export asynchronous function patch is going to have a request, which is type of request. We're going to have params, which is going to hold the individual course ID, which is a string like that. Let's go ahead and open our try and catch block. Let's log this error. So console log, and we're gonna write course ID publish like this with an error. And let's just return new next response from next/server internal error like this with a status of 500. All right, now let's extract our user ID from the out. So I imported Clark Next.js right here at the top. And if we don't have the user ID, we can return new next response unauthorized like that with a status of 401. Great. So the thing we usually do, right? And now let's go ahead and let's fetch the course we are trying to publish. So for that, we're going to have to add our DB package. So import DB from @libdb like that. And let's write const course to be await db.course.findUnique, where ID is params.courseID, and we have a user ID matching. And let's include like this chapters, and let's include max data inside of each chapter like that. Let's first check if there is no course to be found. In that case, let's return new next response not found with the status of 404 like that. Great. Now let's go ahead and let's check if we published this course. Let's check if we have a published chapter. So const has published chapter is going to be course.chapters.sum chapter, and we're going to just search for chapter.is published. So at least one chapter needs to be published. That's why we are using sum, right? If we wanted every chapter, we would write every, but we are using sum, right? Because only one is needed. Great, so we have that. And now let's do our check if we can publish this course or not. So if there is no course.title, if there is no course.description, or if there is no course.image URL, or if there is no as published chapter, right? If there is no published chapter, and let's also add before that, if there is no course.category ID. So we need all of these things. So course title, description, image URL, category ID, and published chapter. So all of those are required, right? So if any of that is missing, return new next response, missing required fields like that with a status of 401 like this. So required like this. All right. Otherwise, we are finally ready to publish the course. So const published course is going to be await db.course.update, where ID is params.courseID, and user ID is matching, and data is very simply going to be is published finally to true, and then we can return next response.json published course like this. There we go. And while we are here, let's also create our unpublished function, right? So I'm just gonna copy and paste this, and I'm gonna create a new folder called unpublish like this, and create a route.ts inside, and let's paste this entire thing here. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna we'll do the normal user ID here, and we can simplify this so we don't have to include anything when finding this initial course, right? So we just want to find the course that we're trying to unpublish. If it doesn't exist, we can just write A404, and we don't have to do these checks at all. We just have to write unpublished course, because we are turning the is published to false, like this, and then we have to send back the unpublished course like this, and let's change this error to unpublish like this. So a much simpler version of what we just had, right? So what we did was we copied this function from publish, right, which was a bit more complicated. We left the user ID authorization. We simplified finding of the individual course because we don't need to include individual chapters and their mux data, so we simplified that. If we haven't managed to find the course using the ID and the user ID, we responded with a not found and 404. Otherwise, we updated the existing course setting is published to false, whereas in the publish route, we set is published to true. So make sure this one is false, and make sure you have unpublished in your errors so it's easier for you. There we go. So I think we have all the routes we need now to test this out. So if I click on publish here, let's see if that's going to refresh this page by hiding this banner. There we go. So we are officially published. And if I click unpublish, what should happen is I should get the banner back. Great, great job. So you officially finished this, but let's just try it out if it truly works, right? So I'm going to publish this course. So make sure your course is published. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go inside of a chapter and we're going to unpublish a chapter, right? So I want to see what happens now. What should happen is that our course is unpublished as well. There we go. Now our course is unpublished. Perfect. So that is officially working. And if I publish my chapter again, we're going to have to manually publish our course again, right? I think that's good user experience. Great, great, great job. One more thing I want to do is that when we click on publish, and we publish the entire course, so not the chapter, but the entire course, I want nice little confetti to throw. I think it looks cool. So let's go ahead and do that now. So first thing I want to install is Zustand. So let's go inside of the terminal here, and I'm going to write npm install Zustand. So we're going to use that as our global state manager to trigger this confetti wherever we want, because we're going to reuse it, right? Also when a student finishes a course. So install Zustand and then run npm install react-confetti like this. So let's just wait for that to install, and then you can npm run dev your app again. And I'm going to close everything, and I'm going to go ahead and create a new folder. So whenever I create a new folder, I click on a file just so I'm focused outside of any of the folders, and then I create it like this, so it's outside of the app folder, hooks, right? And inside, let's create use-confetti-store.ts, like that. So we're gonna have that, and let's quickly import create from Zustand. So from Zustand, like this, let's create an interface, a type, confetti store, which is gonna have is open to be a boolean, and I think we need an equal sign here. We're gonna have on open, which is just a void, and on close, which is also just a void, like this. And now let's export const use confetti store to be create in pointy brackets confetti store type, right? Let's go ahead and let's get the set function, and let's immediately return an object where we're going to set is open to be false. On open is going to be a function which is going to call set, and it's going to change is open to true. And on close, which is going to work very similarly, but it's going to set is open to false, like that. So we're going to use this as our global controls for the confetti. Perfect. Now let's go ahead and let's go inside of the components folder, inside of providers, and create a new file called confetti-provider.tsx, like this. Let's mark this as use client, like that. Let's import React confetti from React-confetti, like that. And let's import use confetti store from @hooks use confetti store. And now export const confetti provider, like this. So just make sure this is marked as use client, right? Const confetti to be use confetti store. If there is no confetti is open, so if confetti is closed, we don't display anything, we just return null. Otherwise, we are going to render React confetti, so it's just a self-closing tag, like this. Let's give it a class name of pointer events none and z index of 100, so it's just above all of our other elements. And let's give it a number of pieces to be 500. Let's give it a recycle option of false. And let's write onConfettiComplete to be an arrow function, which very simply just calls confetti onClose. So we're going to call that little action inside of our confetti store to close itself, like that. Perfect, so we have that, and now we just have to add the confetti provider inside of our app folder, inside of our layout.tsx. So let's go ahead and let's add that above the toast provider, for example, confetti provider, like this. So make sure you import confetti provider from add/components providers, confetti provider, like this. And now where I want to go is inside of actions.tsx. So not our chapter actions, but our course actions. So that's located in routes. So in dashboard, routes, teacher, courses, course ID, underscore components, actions right here. And what I want to do is inside of this publishing thing. So here where we say course.isPublished, I want to add the confetti store first. So let's do that. Const confetti is equal use confetti store, like that. So make sure you import this from hooks use confetti store. And now when you have the confetti, so here where we write course published, we're gonna write confetti.onOpen, like that. So just make sure that that's here where we await a publish action, right? And let's try that out. So I'm just gonna refresh this entire page. Let's wait. First thing I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna have to unpublish the course. So let me unpublish it, and that should have no confetti, and it should have this banner, correct? And then when I click publish, what should happen is a nice little confetti, and there we go. We have a beautiful confetti here. Amazing, amazing job. You finished the entire course creation. We're finally ready to modify this courses page to not just be a plain button saying new course, but instead a useful table where we can see as a teacher all of our courses. Great, great job. So first thing we're gonna have to do is install and set up our data table. So I'm in Chatzian UI, I clicked on components here, and in the sidebar I found data table right here. So let's take a look at everything we have to do to install this. So first thing we have to do is we have to add the regular table inside of our project. So I'm gonna copy this command, and I'm gonna go ahead inside of my terminal, and I'm gonna paste npx chatzian-ui at latest add table. So just go ahead and confirm this installation. Next thing we're gonna have to do is install the dependency 10stack react table. So copy this like that, and let's go ahead and paste it. So npm install add 10stack/react-table like this. Great. So once we have this, what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to set up our project structure. So we're gonna have columns, data table, and a page.tsx. So first thing I wanna do is I wanna create this dummy columns right here. So scroll to columns definition and just copy this. And now let's find where we're gonna do this. So I'm gonna run my app like that. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go back inside of our page where we only render a button to create a new course. So that's inside dashboard, routes, teacher, courses, right here, where we render a button, new course. So let's go inside of this folder and create underscore components here. And let's create a new file called columns.tsx, like this. And we can paste this inside. So we are going to mark this as use client. We're going to import column def from add10stack/react table like this. I'm going to remove this. We're going to have a type payment here. So we're going to obviously change everything here. But this is just so we have something in our columns like that. Great. Next thing we have to do is we have to create a data table component. So go to step 2 and find the data table component. And let's copy this entire thing. And let's go ahead inside of this underscore components and create a new file data-table.tsx like this and paste it inside. So the entire data table component like that. Great. Now that we have that, we're going to have to render that inside of our page.tsx like this. So I'm going to go ahead. So this is where we're going to do that. In this page where we have rendering our button, right? So just for demonstration, I'm going to copy this asynchronous function get data, right, from this snippet. So this is what it's going to look like. So just like this. And I'm going to change this to any because it really doesn't matter, right? Let's save this. What we're going to have to do next is we're going to have to add this component data table in here. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this line. And I'm going to change my button. So I'm going to remove my button entirely and link like this. And I'm going to render the data table. So let's import data table from /_components data table. And we can remove these two imports now like this. And we're also going to have to import the columns. So let's go ahead and let's import columns from /_components columns, because we have both of those inside of our underscore components like that. And the last thing we have to do is get this dummy data. So let's mark this courses page as a synchronous function, and let's just write const data to be await get data, which we wrote right here. So it's a dummy function, right? So now if you go ahead and refresh this page, just make sure you have your app running, you should see a table with some dummy data. There we go. So you can see we have some dummy information right here. So now we're going to modify this to actually fetch our data. So the first thing I want to do is I want to go inside of the columns and modify it a little bit like that. So we're not going to need this export type payment at all. We can remove that. Instead, inside of our column def, we're going to work with a course type from Prisma client like this. And it's going to be an array, of course. The first thing we're going to add is accessor key title, and the header is just going to be a title like this. After that, we're going to go ahead and render the price. So this is going to be price, and header is going to be price like this. Then we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the accessor key to is published, and we're going to have a header published like this. And the last thing we're going to add is our actions to edit the individual course, but we're going to do that later. So let's just leave it like this for now. And now let's go back inside of our page.tsx, and we can remove this get data, so we no longer need it. Instead, we're going to work with courses. So in order to do that, first thing I want to do is get the user ID. So const user ID from out from clerk.next.js, and I'm just going to move this to the top like that. Then I'm going to write if there is no user ID, we're going to return redirect from next/navigation to back like that. So let's just move it here to the top. And then let's go ahead and let's attempt to fetch our course. So const courses is going to be await db.course.findMany like this. And we don't have db, so let's import db as well. So I'm going to do that here. Import db from add/lib/db like this. All right, and let's write where we have a matching user ID. And let's order by created at descending like this. All right. And now we can use those courses to pass in as data like that. And there we go. You can see I have all of my courses inside. So advanced web development with a price, published, which is true, published, which is false, all of these things which we are going to use. Great. So what we have to do now is go back inside of the data table here. And let's take a look at everything we're going to do here. So I'm going to go scroll all the way down. And first thing I want to add is pagination. So scroll inside of this data table documentation to find the pagination, right? And let's see what we have to do. We have to go inside of our data table and we have to add get pagination row model. So let's go ahead and add that. So I'm just going to keep this side by side, and I'm going to go inside of my data table component. And right here, after get core row model, I'm going to add get pagination row model. Great. Next thing I have to do is I have to add that to the use React table hook right here. So I'm going to copy this line, which is highlighted here. And let's go ahead and find that. So it's right here. So below get core row model, I added this get pagination row model with get pagination row model, and I saved that. All right. So now we have to wrap our entire component inside of a div. So let's do that now. So I'm going to wrap this in a div and go all the way down and wrap it in a div. And I'm going to go ahead and indent that. All right. And now what we have to do is we have to find the end of this table. So right here at the bottom, and we have to add these two new components right here. So let me just expand this like that. And you can copy this entire highlighted field, right? So everything here to the end of this div right here, just don't copy this div as well. So that's duplicated because we already added it right here. So just this div, which encapsulates two buttons inside. So let's go ahead and paste that in here. And what we have to do is we have to import the button from add/components UI button. So just make sure you add this import as well. And if you save, there we go. Now we have pagination ready, right? It's not working currently because we don't have enough courses inside to actually enable the pagination. Great, so we added that. Now let's scroll even further and let's make our header cell sortable, right? So we have to go inside of our columns.tsx where we have the accessor key and the title. And what we have to do, where is it? Whoops, sorting. Whoops, so I got ahead of myself. So first thing, we are going to do something in the columns, but first we have to go back inside of data table. And let's import everything as React right here, like that. So we do that. Then we add a sorting state after the column def. Then we add get sorted row model below get pagination row model. Then we add this state for sorting and set sorting inside of the component above the use React table like this. So sorting and set sorting from react.use state like this. All right, we have that. And now we have to go ahead and we have to add these two. So on sorting change and get sorting row model. So I'm going to copy these two. And I'm going to paste it after get pagination row model like that. So now we have set sorting, get sorted row model, and we have a state like this. Great. And as you can see, that's all we have to do inside of the data table component. And now we have to go back inside of our columns right here. And let's go ahead now and let's import these two icons here from Lucid React. So arrow up and more horizontal from Lucid React. Let's go ahead and let's import a button component from add/components UI button like this. And let's go ahead and let's modify this header to be a function like this. So we're going to extract the column inside and we're going to return a function and we're going to return a JSX element, which is going to be a button with a variant. Sorry, it's going to be a button with a variant of ghost like that. And on click is going to be an arrow function, which is going to call column.toggle sorting like this. Let's see if that's all it takes. Oh, so we also have to pass in column get is sorted is equal to ascending like this inside of that function. So let me expand that so you can see it in one line. There we go. So button on click column, which we extract from the header, toggle sorting, and inside we pass column get is sorted is equal to ascending like this. Great. And now that we have that, let's see what else we have to do. So we did this. We are working, where is it? Right here. Okay. And then inside of that button, we're going to render a title text, right? And then we're going to render arrow up, down from Lucid React. And let's give it a class name of ML-2, H-4, and W-4 like this. Or you could just basically copy the header and then just change the email to title, right? So we just did that step by step here. Perfect. And now let's take a look at how that looks. So right here, there we go. You can see the title is now sortable, right? So I can sort by alphabet right here. Perfect. And now let's do the same thing for price and for published, right? So I'm going to go ahead here and I'm going to copy this header component and I'm going to change the price to do the same thing like that. And let's change this to be price. And let's do the same thing for published. And let's change this to be published like this. There we go. So you can see that now the price is sortable. So you can go by empty first, or we can go by highest first, right? And same thing is published. We can sort by false and we can sort by true. Perfect. So we have enabled sorting. And one last thing that I'm going to add is our actions, right? So we don't have to do this visibility. I'm pretty sure we are done with the entire data table. So we can close this now. And now we're going to add a third action here to actually trigger our actions to edit a specific course. So let's go back inside of our columns. And before we do that, we're going to have to install another ShadCN package called drop-down menu. So let's go inside of our terminal and let's write npx shadcn-ui at latest add drop-down dash menu like this. Go ahead and confirm this installation, and then you can go ahead and npm run dev your app again. All right, so let's go ahead and we can remove the actually, let's leave more horizontal. Let's leave it here. And let's go ahead and let's import drop-down menu content, drop-down menu item, and drop-down menu trigger from add/component/UI/drop-down menu like this. Great. Now let's go all the way to the end where we have our is published. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a new one. So like this, open a new object and I'll give it an ID of actions like that, and give it a cell like this to be a row, open a function, and inside extract the ID from row.original. So this is going to be a course ID, right? And let's return a drop-down menu inside drop-down menu trigger, which is going to have a prop as a child. Inside, we're going to render a button, which we already have imported. We're going to write a span where we're going to say open menu, but this is only going to be for screen readers. So class name SR only. So a little accessibility on our side here. Let's give it a variant of ghost and the class name of h-8w-8 and padding 0. So this is a class name for the button, right? And below the span inside of the button, we're going to render more horizontal, which we have imported from Lucid React like this. Now outside of the drop-down trigger, let's open drop-down menu content like this. Let's give it an align prop of end. Let's give it an end tag, so and the drop-down menu content, and inside we're going to add a link component from next/link. So make sure you import that from next/link. I'm just going to move it to the top. All right, and let's go all the way back down. And let's go ahead and let's render a drop-down menu item, which we have imported. And let's just render a pencil icon from Lucid React. So make sure you imported the pencil icon. All right, let's give it a class name of h-4, w-4, and margin right 2, like that. And let's write edit. And let's give this one an href to be backticks/teacher/courses/the ID, which we extracted right here from the original. And let's just see what's going on with the pencil. Oh, it looks like I did a mistake here. So yours is probably working. So pencil from Lucid React. All right, so now we should have the actions. So let me just refresh this part right here. Let's just wait a second for this to load. And there we go. We now have the actions right here. Perfect. Let's see if we can modify this a bit right here. So I'm going to go ahead and find this more horizontal right here. And let's give it a class name of h-4 and w-4. Right, there we go. So I want them to be much smaller like this. And we have an edit. And if I click on edit, I should get redirected to that specific course. And I am perfect. So now from here, we can easily manage our courses individually. Great. So what I want to modify now is I want to change this price to be formatted. So it has a $sign. And I want to change this published to be in a badge, right, instead of a true and false. So a bit of a prettier view. All right, so let's go ahead And let's do the price first. So in here we have a header ready. And after the header, let's add a cell option. And we're going to extract the row here. So I'm working this inside of the is